Hey everyone, you're listening to the Modern People Leader podcast. Today's episode is a part of our Work Expert series, where we talk to some of the top thought leaders out there about the future of work. MPL family, stop what you're doing and take 5 seconds to go subscribe to the MPL Weekly Digest. Every week, we'll share the top 3 takeaways from the episode, along with the full transcript. Just go to the show notes for this episode and click the link to subscribe. And now, without further ado, enjoy the show. Happy Friday, everybody. How y'all doing?
This thing is being recorded.
Doing great.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Super excited for today's chat.
It's been a while since we've had a group.
We haven't had a group episode for, I think, 3 months.
Wow.
And our plan was to do one every single month, but we've been slacking, clearly.
We have.
So yeah, excited to have you two here today. How y'all doing?
This will be the best one yet, for sure.
Oh, definitely.
For sure.
2 Australian besties, 2 cousins first removed. It's a match made in heaven.
It is truly a match made, and we should have recorded together, Jesse, as well. That would have been
I know.
like us taking it to the next level next time.
So
If you invite us back, we'll do that.
Oh yeah, definitely. So Jessica, every time we send out an outline to any of our guests, we put on there like our favorite episodes for them to check out, and yours is on that list. So I'm hoping that this episode will be even better, and maybe I can replace that episode with this episode.
Why not have both?
Or we
I
could
need to
have
be on there
both.
multiple
Yeah, we
times.
could have both. That's true.
I did
cool.
see that it was on there when you sent us the outline, and I did think to myself, I wonder if they're being sweet and add me back on there so that I feel nice, but I appreciate you saying it.
No, that's the level. That's your status with us. You're one of the top.
Yeah. Well, let's do good news stories. So, Ryan, you've never been on the show, so you might not be familiar with this tradition, but every episode we kick off with good news stories, and we all go around and share a story from the past couple of weeks. It could be work related, it could be personal, and yeah, it's just a fun way to kick off the show. Does anybody want to go first?
Good news. I'll go first. So I co-parent 2 daughters, 13 and 11. And during the summer, the schedule like changes, it gets all wonky. And so I don't have them for much until July. And then I have them for the entire month of July. And so that is literally tomorrow. So my good news is I get my daughters back tomorrow. And we have
Sarah back.
And
That's
Sarah.
so
Yeah, my
amazing.
partner's been in Amsterdam. She's been gone for a week. So no, we
The gang's all back.
the gang is back and we have some huge plans for July. So looking forward to it.
Some good news. Who wants
That's
to go
really
next?
good. My good news is like not going to even sound remotely as good. I've got 2 things. I have
Okay.
had an event that I was meant to do in June in London, which I was really excited about. And then my travel plans got interrupted and I had to cancel the event. And I just booked and planned the new travel I'm doing into London in August. So I've managed to rebook the event back in and we're sending out invitations. I'm really excited about it. And it's with someone someone I really love called Kim Stringer in London. She organizes it and I'm really excited to get to do an event with her. So that is exciting. And the second piece of news, and Ryan, you're going to love this one. We took my cat in to get groomed and they shaved him like a little lion and he's got like a
we need
little tuft on his
pictures.
tail.
Good, yeah.
It's like a full
Let's see.
mane.
We definitely need pictures. That sounds
Yeah,
awesome.
I'll send them.
I can go next, and I know you can bookend it if you like. Like there's a lot of good stuff going on. I don't know, like at home, I have a 3-year-old and he's just like the cutest at the moment. He's just like loving his mummy and daddy. It's awesomely fun. Work is great too. I feel like I'm a 1.5 years into my journey at Gympass, and I just have a cracker of a team. Like my team is amazing. I feel so grateful to work with the people I work with, and that just makes work so much fun. And then lastly, I feel like I've been on this like well-being journey for the past like 12 months, and I'm just feeling healthier and having better work-life wellness than I've ever had before. All of the pillars of my life are feeling good right now. I'm like, touch wood, it stays like that for a while.
Oh,
That's
awesome.
my good news
All the buckets are filled. So
for now.
yeah, for now. I'm having trouble thinking of my good news. I guess my good news. So we've done 5 episodes in the last 8 days, which is a lot for us.
It's a lot.
And it's always just energizing having these conversations. But on top of that, we had a client kickoff call with somebody who's going to be sponsoring the podcast later in the year. And that was also really exciting.
Yeah.
It feels like we have a legit business now, which we couldn't have said back in December or even January, really.
Yeah.
So the startup of the
Awesome.
Modern People Leader is
Awesome.
growing, and it's fun and
The
it's
metrics,
exciting.
we're going to talk about metrics later, but the metrics
Yeah.
look good. We
And
distribute 'em.
and I feel like my wellness journey is directly like correlated with going full time at the Modern People Leader. And I feel like the number one benefit actually of having your own business or being able to control your hours of the day is in the gym more, doing all the things to keep myself healthy. And I
Preach.
don't
Love
see
that.
a world in where all of these aspects of my life that I now have incorporated into it are not there. So life's good.
I think once you get like on that well-being journey and like you work out how to, I don't know, integrate wellness and use it as something that almost helps you be better at work, like you can't turn back, I don't think. Like I know you like have that journey, Jess, and I think I'm like later to the page with that, but I don't know, once you're there, I could never imagine a world without like really prioritizing my health. So,
You like need
Cheers
it.
to that. Yeah. It's
I know
like
Steven's
it's
the same
yeah,
way.
it's a basic need and I have to do it.
Yeah.
I have to look at it every week, ideally every day, but every week I need to look at, am I putting my time in the right places? Am I taking care of myself? And it's an evolution also. So like when you think you've got it like perfectly mastered, life change, you have a child or like things, you have trips or new jobs. In my case, that's the big looming next big life thing I have to figure out is what I'm going to be when I grow up. So
Well, you're figuring it out.
I'm figuring it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, I know y'all crossed paths at Whereby. Is that where y'all met? Like give us the origin story of how y'all became friends and why we're sitting with the two of you
Aussie
today.
besties, I think is what Ryan said.
Yeah, besties. Well, Ryan worked at Whereby, and I think the first day we met, I interviewed him, and it was like a scorching hot day in Amsterdam. I remember I was wearing a pair of togs, I was in my swimmers.
yes, I'm so
I
glad you remember that because I was going to call out. Literally, she was wearing like a bikini top, I think, essentially. Something
I
to
was
that
like, I'm
effect.
sorry, it's hot. You're Australian, you get it. And he was like, yeah, babe, 100%. And we
That's
just
what I
had this
said.
really great
Secretly, what I was
chat.
thinking was like, who is this person?
I love it.
And now you know.
By the end of the call, I was like, okay, I know she is. She's great. We're aligned, two peas in a pod. But at the start, I was like, this is a different
Nutcase.
interview. Yeah, but I don't
So-
know. I think sometimes you just like meet someone in like work or just like in any kind of way of life, and I don't know. There's like a vibe, and you're on the same wavelength. I think we connected, and the rest is history. And then I don't know. I like to think of like I was the way like that pulled you to New York, just all the way from Amsterdam. I don't think that's the truth, but like
You were definitely a part of it.
So did y'all immediately feel like y'all were on the same wavelength, or do either of y'all have like a memory where you're like, oh, like I really enjoy being around this person and we're gonna be friends regardless of where we work in the future?
I don't know. I think like once I had left Whereby, I think then I don't know. I feel like I think actually I don't think our relationship changed that much. Just I'm curious what your perspective is, but I think and Australians are
Yeah.
pretty just like matter of fact, like no BS people, and so I think we always connected on that front, and so I think the relationship developed further. I think like post Whereby and post my time there,
Mhm.
but yeah.
Yeah, I think we were just like, we had like a friendship at the beginning because there's lots of similarities between us. And then through work, like both, I think Ryan, you also have like really high standards. Like we both have very high standards for like what we want to do for the teams that we work for, but also just generally for like ourselves and like the way that we like to work. So I remember we used to talk all the time on FaceTime. Remember, you would constantly be FaceTiming each other throughout the day.
I'm one of
all
those
the
weird
time.
people that just like randomly FaceTime people out of the blue. Like I'll like random. We haven't spoken for 6 months. FaceTime like in the morning. I'm all about it.
I need to do more of that. Usually if I do that, it's because I'm butt dialing you and it's not at
I
all
get at least
intentional.
one butt dial from Steven a week.
Not wrong. Not wrong.
So Ryan, this is, your first time on the show.
Mm.
Our audience, isn't as familiar with you as they are with Jessica. Can you tell us a little bit about your career journey? I find it pretty interesting. Some of the highlights I remember from our call a few months ago, you started as an international flight attendant. Is that right?
I did, yeah. I studied. I was like, I guess taking a step back, I was like one of those weird kids that, like, at the age of 8 or something like that, knew I wanted to be a CMO, and knew I wanted to be a CMO by the age of 30. So I didn't know anyone that was in marketing. I don't know where this came from, to be completely honest, but like that was the mission. I like worked hard at school. I started university, and after like my first year, I was a little bit burnt out at university, and just during summer holidays, I applied for a random role at Qantas, which is Australia's airline. And yeah, kind of got the job, went through training, and spent several years doing that. I think I did it only for 1 year full time. And then I then was doing full time uni and part time flying. So I would fly to LA on like a Friday, get back to Sydney on a Monday, and go straight to university and do like 8 hours of classes. And people would be talking about their weekends out, or just being quiet about like my wild night in Hollywood over the weekend or something like that. And so it was like great. And I think for me, to be honest, like it was the first time I really was able to be inside a business and see how a business ran, and how the marketing and the internal marketing and the enablement of their employees worked, right? Because flight attendants are really probably the highest touch part of your experience when you're traveling through the air, right? There's like a check-in experience, there's the booking experience, but like the make or break experience is like on the plane. And I felt like I learned a lot about customer experience through that journey. But yeah, kind of from there, then went into consumer tech at Microsoft, and then went into sort of B2B tech and enterprise SaaS tech at your Salesforces and your HubSpots. And kind of all of that led me to Gympass about a year and a half ago. And I've never been happier in a role, like genuinely, like the happiest role I've ever been in, like the company that I am most proud to be a part of, and really, really in a great place. Really grateful.
Did you end up, making your goal of CMO by 30?
I did, but it wasn't like it kind of was more serendipitous than anything. Like I
Yeah.
kind of let go of that idea. It was just like a weird little kid thing, I think, ultimately. And yes, I think I was about like, I just had turned 29, I think, when I became the CMO at G2. And that was like, I kind of delayed that. Like they were wanting to join them, and I wasn't ready to leave HubSpot. And I just got a new opportunity at HubSpot, and HubSpot had moved me from Sydney to Boston. And so it was really hard to leave, because again, HubSpot is like probably one of the other experiences in my career that just like the most amazing people, a great product, like a really valuable experience. I grew more at HubSpot than I think I have in any job before.
Yeah. So you mentioned this is like, the happiest you've been in a role with Gympass. So what does Gympass do? If there were a family member that's like, Ryan, like, what are you up to? How would you quickly describe to them what Gympass does?
Yeah, I'd say like TLDR, I would say like Gympass is the world's leading corporate wellbeing platform with the largest network of gyms, studios, classes, personal trainers, and wellbeing apps. And all of that is built into one employee benefit. So we sell to companies, and then they give their employees access to our platform. And something like 50,000 partners of ours all around the world. So that's kind of like what we do at like the highest level from a description perspective. I think the way we sell, right, when we're selling to HR, we're obviously really leaning into the ways in which we help HR leaders increase employee retention, increase employee net promoter score, decrease healthcare costs, because healthier employees go to the doctor less, which decreases your insurance premiums as a company. And then it's pretty easy, obviously, marketing to their employees, right? Like every employee would love access to something like Gympass. So that's like the really easy part, to be honest. But I think the step one in our process really is selling to HR and helping them see the value, and that we're not just a perk. We can actually really impact their bottom line.
I know I definitely would love that perk. Last time we spoke, you mentioned to me that the modern people leader, we could sign up for that.
Yeah.
And I haven't pitched Steven on this yet, but
I'm in.
yeah, like
Wellness, health.
I feel like I must have like 3 gym memberships and it's expensive. And I
Where are you
feel
all based? Is it London?
Austin.
Austin. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think like we start with companies with 10. So for 10 or less employees, I think it's at roughly $160 a month for the company in
wow.
total. So yeah, exactly. It's like really not crazy. So it's like $16 like per employee per month. All right. No, I think that's incorrect math. Math isn't my strong suit. I'm a
Me
marketer.
neither.
I'm terrible at mental math. I was like,
Yeah.
ooh, he's brave. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. So Jessica, I feel like so much has happened since we last caught up. You have a book that's now published. Can you share a little bit more about that with our audience?
Yeah, I wrote a book. It is a book called Built for People. It's a book about basically what we spoke about on the podcast last time, right? It's like this idea about approaching your employee experience as a product and how do you practically do that. There's a bunch of case studies talking about the ways that different size and shape companies can approach it, how to build out your team, how to write a job description, how to run retrospectives and planning sessions, how to approach user research within your employee base, and then a really big section talking about how to kind of poach marketing and revenue generation metrics and use them in your people operations team to better inform the decisions that you're making to measure success.
so I got my copy pre-order. I haven't finished it yet, but I love it so far. It's absolutely
Really?
awesome. Yeah, and I know I've seen. I'm not the only one because I've seen the kudos people have given you on LinkedIn. And so what share with us, like what's the biggest surprise from the response you've gotten from the people leader community about the book?
Yeah, wow, what a good question. Well, thank you so much for getting it. I
Of
appreciate
course.
you reading it as well. It's so funny. My little sister's a writer, like she's an actual writer, she says. So she studied creative writing and she got a copy of the book, of course, and then she emailed me like literally 3 days in and was like, I love you so much. I'm so proud of you. I'm never gonna read it. It's so boring. And I was like, great.
What? Get out of here.
It's just not her world, right? But it's always nice when somebody says that they are reading it. Yeah, I think there's been a lot of really great positive feedback from people, which really makes me like very humbled to read. One of the things I actually got recently, two things I got in one day, which is like a kind of crazy day. I had one lady reach out to say that she was doing a product management course with General Assembly because she loved the book so much and she wanted to learn more about product management. So she was going back to get a qualification. She was in people operations. And then somebody else said that they had done their final dissertation for their UK CIPD for HR, and they'd cited my book as like part of their dissertation, which I think is hilarious. And like those kinds of things are always really nice to hear. That's actually kind of gone on and done something else in someone's life that they've achieved. But also just a lot of people saying that like, oh, I've started using it in my team. This is the feedback we're getting. This is how I've changed and adapts the processes that you've put in place. So yeah, it's been a really nice experience. Writing it was a hell on earth. But finishing it and publishing it's been really fun.
And I feel like the idea of running a people team more like a product team is starting to catch on. Like just this week, we published an episode with Crystal Boyson, Vimeo's CPO, and she walked us through how their team operates and how it's very much like a product team. And then I do like these like weekly wrap up posts where I sort of pull together all the top posts on LinkedIn for the week from people leaders out there. And I can't remember her name, but one of the posts that I pulled in, this people leader was breaking down how she does it for her team and why more people teams should do that. Do you think that, like, I don't know, last year at this time, were you hearing that from a lot of people leaders, or do you feel
Yeah,
like that's
I think it's funny. It's things, right? Like, I think some teams were already doing a lot of these things, but maybe just not putting these specific names to it. Like, I think people were saying, like, oh, I'm running my team in a bit more agile of a way, or we really care about feedback. So we're getting a lot of feedback as we build. And lately, I think it's started to actually be people using the words like I'm using product management principles or I'm doing user research and that I think has been a really big shift. So maybe like a lot of people are already operating in parts like this, but now the words are really sticking. But I also just think it's starting to become much more of a popular thing. It's like, if one person's talking about something, then their halo effect is so many. But if more and more and more, it starts becoming a louder crescendo, right?
Yeah, I mean, Daniel will tell you, of all the guests that we've had on, there are probably three that I most frequently reference in other modern people leader conversations. And you're one of them, Jessica. Just the notion, and the conversation we had with you around your people experience being a product of the company, and as a result, needing to be managed like a product, was just so mind-blowing to me. And you're right, like, we had heard bits and pieces of the concepts in other conversations, but the way you synthesize it all and the way that your book does, it just it's kind of mind-blowing. And I frequently think back and I refer back to that conversation, and I think it's going to be a trend that we continue to see. But I feel like now that I'm a part of this community and my mind has been open, I think it's really just the beginning of a broader shift in the way that a people function works, the way that people leaders operate. And our audience may be wondering, why is there a CMO and a COO on the Modern People Leader? And so one of the reasons that we were so excited to have you guys on for a group episode is this notion of a modern people leader needing to be connected to the business. That can mean different things to different people. For me, a big part of that is being close to revenue, understanding the revenue engine, like the fundamental, like, how do we make money? And what are the threats and risks to us making money? How do we overcome those? The entire revenue model is something that we keep talking about more and more on the Modern People Leader. And so I thought this would just be a great topic to talk about with you two. I can't remember which one of you said it in our prep call, but the quote was, "The closer you are to revenue, the more influence you have." And I know that
Sounds like a Ryan Bonnici.
it's a beautiful quote. And for a CMO, COO, I think that's a little easier to kind of wrap your head around. But for the HR leaders out there, what advice would you give them on how they can align themselves with revenue, and just get a general overall understanding of the revenue model in the business?
So I think like the first thing for me is that I think, like, as a C-suite member, so an executive team member, I think it's all of our responsibility to be close to revenue and to understand how the business works. And we talk a lot at Gympass about this idea that, like, team one is the exec team. So, like, my first team is the exec team, and that comes before my own. And I think when you have execs that prioritize their team before the exec team, that's where you get siloed functions and folks defending their area. And so I think I would just like call that out up front, because I think that's a little bit different than some companies. Is that, like, the first team is really the exec team. I think, like, the second part of it for me is really understanding, how does your boss and or the board view your role, and how do they measure your impact on the business? So I think there will never be a harm, obviously, like, working out how your role drives the business forward, especially revenue. But I think it's also really important to understand and just make sure you understand the expectations of your leader, so the CEO and the board, because just because you drive the thing that you think is needed, if it's not what they think is needed, then you're setting yourself up for failure. And I think more often than not in CMO roles or CRO roles, like, there's a very clear definition around how we do drive growth. And I think that's true for the whole go-to-market team. So I don't know. I think for me, I was thinking about this specifically with regard to HR leaders, and I'll pass it to Jess, because I think you'll have a much more articulate response here than me. But we have a really remarkable CPO, Chief People Officer at Gympass. Her name's Livia Martini, and she's fabulous. And I think part of what makes her so fabulous is that she's not traditionally trained as a HR leader. Mm-hmm. And so I think she comes at things as a little bit more of, like, with a consulting sort of mindset and a problem solving mindset, versus this is how I was taught to do it back in university. And I think that makes her incredibly powerful. And I actually think, I don't know if that's true for you, Jess, but I think that's part of, I think what I think is your superpower too, is that you come at things with a more holistic view, thinking about different things outside of your realm. And so I don't know, I think like the way she then measures her effectiveness is through all of us, right? So like, is she hiring at the speed that we need to hire to drive the roles that will drive outcomes for the business? Are the programs that she is delivering for the business aligned with the feedback just mentioned, user research, right? Like employee research or user research. Are they aligned to the things that employees are saying they need to be better, right? And so I think it's really common in large organizations or hyper-growth organizations that middle management needs more help with like process, empowerment. And as people move up in fast-growing companies into leadership and management, how do they learn the skills to be highly effective? And that was certainly the case for Gympass, and our people ops team has delivered on all of those things, and it's super visible in our quarterly eNPS surveys. And so I think there's so many different ways you can connect your role to the business, but I think like my most important message here is like really making sure you understand, what does your boss think is the way you should be measured, and they could be wrong, right? But I think more important than anything is to know what they're thinking, so you can have that discussion to try and re-educate, or potentially like disagree and commit them. So yeah.
You also have a really interesting other perspective here, Ryan, of course, which is like your team is selling to HR leaders who are trying to justify exactly what you're talking about, right? So that your customers are also trying to justify like, how is buying Gympass going to affect their revenue ultimately? Because that's what HR leaders are trying to do, right? So there's this whole, your team has the internal question that we're talking about, but then your customers also have the same internal question, which is like, how does Gympass help their company's bottom line?
Totally.
So I think it's also a really
and I think
right?
on that point specifically, like it's, and I think especially right in like the environment we are all operating in today, right, where the economies globally are unstable. There's been sort of discussions of a recession, like will it continue, will it get worse, will it get better? And I think all companies, and again to my point of like every C-suite needs to really understand the business metric, every function that can either make more profitable revenue or save costs from the hard bottom line are dramatically impactful to a company, right? And their cash reserves and their profitability. And so when I think about that in my role, it's oftentimes like, if I save this dollar, like, is this dollar better used saved and like saving on the bottom line? Or can I generate more profitable, like net revenue on the top end for using this dollar? And it's the exact same for our customers, right? You know, our customers that love Gympass and have been using it for a while have been able to start to connect again, like I mentioned before, like the health of their employees that are using Gympass with lower healthcare premiums for the company. And so I think some of our customers that have been with us for 3 or so years and have enough data have shared like some of the wildest stats with us, and stats such as like for every dollar they spend on Gympass, they spend $10 on their healthcare as a company, right? So it's like very clear, okay, like we're investing, let's say we're investing $100,000 a year in Gympass, we're saving now $1 million on healthcare costs. And they can really easily, because they've been doing this for a while, show that to their CEO, show that to their CFO. And then it's very clear, okay, wow, that's amazing. A, we're never gonna like let go of Gympass. But B, how do we get more of our employees using it? Because that will mean it won't be like 10-to-1 savings. It could be 20-to-1 if we could increase the percentage of our population. What's really interesting is that's not a really natural thing, I think, for a lot of HR leaders to do. You know, when I'm constantly speaking to customers and I'm constantly speaking to prospects as well, and trying to just, again, like I think as a marketer, your job is to really understand and empathize with the person that you're selling to and understand how your product, your service can help them. And because of that and all of those conversations I have, I find so many chief people officers will then be saying, hey, like you all must be really great at this. Like we've seen your stats. How are you doing this? Help us do this. Which A, is kind of humbling, but B, is also a little bit insightful into just how that function has changed. Yeah. I also just think the chief people officer or CHRO function is such a hard function. I mean, kudos to anyone that goes into that function, because, you know, I even see it for our chief people officer, but, you know, when she's trying to launch an initiative, I think that is the hardest job on the C-suite, because you need the buy-in. right? If I want to run a marketing campaign, I don't need anyone's buy-in. Like all I need is like the cash in, cash out numbers. And so it's like whether you like it or not, sorry, like this is making money for us. So I don't think anyone's going to get it's a little softer, I think, on the HR side. And I've seen that firsthand and just like the challenges in whether it's like, do you do quarterly performance cycles or annual? Every C-suite executive has a really strong opinion. And so it's a hard role. It's a really hard role. So shout out to all of the chief people officers listening.
You know how, Ryan, I know you know the persona of an HR leader really, really well, because you called out like the key 3 challenges that we've talked about on the Modern People Leader for like the last couple of years. One of which being the fact that the role of a people leader, there's a high variability in that, like how the CEO defines the scope and job of a chief people officer is highly variable. And it's not like a CMO or a CFO that has a pretty consistent role, job to job to job. And the other thing is people often say, oh, CEO, that's the hardest job. But at least the CEO has other people that they can like, that will listen, that they can vent to and delegate to. With the chief people officer, in many cases, doesn't have that because of the nature of the information that they're dealing with. And so, and then the last point being the fact that chief people officers aren't all intuitively good at building business cases, selling business cases, and hence this need for, I believe, more and more focus on the business side of things. And so, Jess, my question to you is, what are some of the like low-hanging fruit metrics that HR leaders can latch onto to connect to the business? Are there any that you've seen or that you're like, yes, that is a good metric, or like, this is what I want to see from the HR people team?
Yeah, I think on this like point, some of the stuff that Ryan, you just said there, like talking about the fact that like there are 2 ways to make a business like essentially effective or to reach profitability. You can either cut your spend or increase your revenue. For so long, so many internal functions like people, like operations, like finance, et cetera, were always just viewed as a cost center. Like it's the only way that you can improve anything is just cutting out of that function. This is one of the reasons why it kind of is one of the things that inspired me to write the book that I wrote, right? It's like the idea of like, no, HR is not just a cost center. It actually is a place that helps you get revenue, because ultimately 60 or something % of your monthly spend is invested into humans who then go out and make money. So you are essentially the budget owners of the biggest investment your company makes, which is there to make revenue, right? So it is not just a cost center. It is also a revenue generation function. It just is revenue generating in a much different way than just purely putting things into performance advertising. So I really like to take metrics from marketing and obviously from product as well when you're building something. So there's lots of metrics like, what's the aha moment of someone joining your team, of them saying like, oh, I really get it. And for different companies, it could be different things. Like for maybe one team, it's, oh, they signed up to be a buddy for onboarding. For someone else, it might be it's the first time they had a customer call. For somebody else, it might be it's the first time they went to an all hands or presented at an all hands, right? There are different moments where you can kind of say like, that's the moment that this person went, aha, I really am embedded here. So that's like a really good example, I think, of like a product metric. But some of the ones in marketing I'm really obsessed with at the moment, I'm really obsessed with employee lifetime value. Like, how do you calculate the CAC to LTV ratio of bringing someone into your team and what they can produce for you, knowing that they have a continuous monthly cost for their subscription that you need to pay? Because I do honestly, I love the CAC to LTV ratio. I think it's such a great way to tell whether or not your company is healthy. And I think the same thing could be said for your employees as well. And different companies need to calculate it in a different way, depending on what your product is, right?
Yeah, I was going to say,
sales teams are pretty good at this, right? Because you often hear like sales leaders talk about ramp up, right? So they'll be, depending on what you sell, there might be like a 3-month ramp where it's like, I know this person isn't going to be profitable for the first 3 months. So it's like sunk cost, but then from month 4 onwards, they're going to be like making more money than they're costing us. And there's not many teams, I guess, that think about that. That's a really interesting point, Jesse. I love that.
It's so interesting as well, right? Because like, it's funny, you hear like sales does it and they do it really effectively. Like, every company has a ramp time for their sales consultants, right? They all think about it. But then you speak to a HR person and you say like, okay, well, if sales is doing it and sales leaders are usually the ones calculating it. Usually it's not the HR team calculating ramp time, right? It's like VP sales. And you like, I've presented the idea of like a CAC to LTV ratio for employees before, and I've received like quite a lot of pushback from HR directors being like, oh, it's impossible to calculate. There's no way. People are too removed from revenue. Yeah, of course. If you're in sales, there's a direct dotted line there between a person and money in. Fine. I think you can do like a fully loaded CAC of marketing and a fully loaded like value of marketing over a period of time, and do the exact same thing for a marketing team, right? If your marketing team is bringing in, say you can attribute like $5 million per annum purely to the marketing function, just split that per head. Like you don't need to get super granular about it. And then like how much is each of these people costing you on average per month, fully loaded? And then how long does it take for them to pay themselves off? And then when does it come to the point where you're able to say this person's really delivering value? You can split it by level if you keep that information. Like these things, I think, are less complicated than sometimes people want to make them, because there's humans involved and it feels yucky maybe.
Yeah. I think it all goes back to deeply understanding the business, and it requires you to talk to all the functional heads and understand what their people are doing on a day-to-day basis. Like another function that I feel like you could do this for is like customer success, like in a B2B tech company. If they are expanding revenue or retaining clients on an annual basis or getting people to sign up for multi-year contracts, like that's all easily attributable and quantifiable. So I don't know. I feel like you can almost do that with any position, really. Even if you think of like software engineers, I'm sure that there's like some productivity metrics that they're looking at that end up turning into revenue.
A lot of companies capitalize their software engineering time, right? Like you put that into your balance sheet as a asset. So like that's even just a very, very simple way of doing it, of like each of those people that are in your software engineering team every single month are contributing to that asset on your balance sheet. Like let's just use that. Fine, it's not about revenue generation, it's about asset development or IP development. There is definitely some way that you can measure like a quantifiable metric around the actual value your employees are adding to your team every month. And you don't need to get down to like, well, what is Daniel's CAC to LTV? Like I think that's a bit insane, but on an aggregate, like this is a really useful thing to know as a business, because then you get to learn like how urgent is turnover for us. If we have a team that we have a super positive CAC to LTV ratio and people are paying themselves back and then more in a year or two, or 16 months time, maybe that's fine. Maybe it's okay if people leave after 2.5 years, because people pay themselves back so quickly that we can afford to have a refreshing org. But anyway, I'm getting too in detail now.
I think one thing you just alluded to, Jess, that I really like is that it's not about perfection, right? And I think that's something that is really important. And I think sometimes teams get a little bit too caught up in, and I do often notice this when I'm chatting with, senior HR folks. It's almost like the metrics aren't perfect. And so there's a fear around it. And I think my feedback to them often on that is that it's less about the metric being exact at that one point in time. It's about the trend of the metric. Because if the metric is faulty, but it's consistently faulty, then that's like it's faulty in a consistent way, maybe is what I'm trying to say. It's like, then all that really matters is how that is then changing over time, right? So I oftentimes will look back and I track this on a monthly basis. And I've been doing this, and I've gone back, I think, at several years, even before I started at Gympass, looking at, okay, how much are we spending as a team? And then like, how much like revenue are we bringing in net sourced by my team? And like, what is that efficiency of like how much I'm spending versus how much I'm bringing in? And what was it for my predecessor? And like, what is it now? Again, the metrics have changed a little bit. So there's some nuance in the data and some spikes here and there for certain things, but there's a story for those things that I understand. But really for me, it's like understanding, is the function overall improving, becoming more efficient, becoming more impactful? And these are the things that I care so much about, so that I can point to like the value that I am driving in the company. And I think that's really important for people leaders to be able to point to something similarly, even if that's not maybe the core
what I think is so
their CEO cares about.
Yeah, completely. You know what I think is so funny, right? It's like cracks me up, right? Like if you're in marketing and your CEO comes to you and says, in order for us to be able to do our job properly, we really need to know like what's the percentage of your attribution funnel that's like dominated by brand marketing, right? Like that's a hard metric to try and figure out. Like, okay, what is brand bringing in? Like, how hard it is to measure brand marketing.
Yeah.
But
very hard.
You wouldn't turn around and say like, sorry, that's too hard for me to calculate. I can't give you that. you would say like, okay, well, there's some different ways that I can figure out how effective parts of brand marketing are. Like, I can give you some like kind of lead on this. Is like, this is a story I want to be able to tell. And I do think sometimes, like in people ops teams, there is this tendency to be like, this metric's too hard to get, so therefore we're not going to get it. And it's like, wait a second, if this is a metric that's important to understand, a big part of your business, just like brand marketing is a very big part of marketing, not being able to get the metric is a very important lesson to be able to learn. Like, why can't we get this thing that we think we need to tell whether or not we're being successful? And it feels like sometimes in HR, like we just kind of, people just kind of stop at that point. They're like, oh, it's too hard to get, therefore like we won't get it. But like, what happens in marketing or product, where else, you would be like, people wouldn't sleep. They'd be like, Ryan, I need you to be able to tell me some kind of story here. Like, not getting this metric is not good enough.
I feel like y'all are both hitting on something that we've heard from a lot of our guests. So another episode that we frequently refer back to is with Jackson Lynch, who's the CHRO, I believe, at Sonova. He talked about how when HR leaders are pitching for more investment budget, they typically struggle because they're looking for the perfect metric, or they want something to be like, they want to be able to prove the ROI and they want to hit like the highest number, instead of saying, here's worst case scenario, here's probably what's going to happen, and here's what happens if we like hit a home run like out of the park. And his point was that I think HR leaders are sometimes a little bit maybe too risk averse, because there's a fear of getting it wrong and having that come back on them, versus like being able to find, multiple ways to kind of build a narrative or kind of build a story around the progress. And they're too focused on almost like getting it perfect, which is never going to happen. So then rather than taking that risk, they just don't do anything because they're afraid that they're not going to be able to measure it.
Totally. I think I want to be like nice to folks, because I don't think this is a choice that they've made. Like, I don't think HR people wake up in the morning, they're like, I'm going to make this really like difficult for myself by not being able to get this metric or not being able to deliver, like prove this value. Like, I think part of the way that HR has been positioned in businesses for a very long time means that they've always worked in a very waterfall style fashion, where you deliver everything over these very long time horizons. It's a huge upfront investment and it has to be successful, because if it fails, it will upset everybody. Everyone's put this energy into it. It's a huge pain. Like, you've got all these managers on board and now nobody likes the thing you've shipped, which also is a recipe for disaster, because if anything takes a year to ship, it's going to be basically ready to be deprecated by the end of that time. But that style of working has kind of tricked a lot of HR people into thinking that the way that you ship things is you have to get your full understanding of what success is going to look like before you do it. And the reality is, actually, you can ship things in HR in a very iterative fashion. And like, there are ways to do that with everything. Like, the amount of times I've seen HR leaders like launch a whole new benefits program. They took a year and a half to get everything together, and they've made all this collateral and all this communication, and they ship it all. And then they're like, oh, no one's using it. And it's like, well, you didn't do user research. You didn't try and ship it and test it in small markets. Like, these things are totally possible to do. Like, you don't have to do everything on these massive year-long time horizons and do everything perfectly. You can ship things more agile, I think.
And what do you think it is that is keeping, HR leaders to this kind of waterfall mindset, Jessica?
I think this is hard. I think for some people, it's just what they've learned works. And if you've been doing something for a long time, it's hard to change. I mean, that's just the way it is. I think for other people, it also is about the expectations of what some C-suites have of HR teams. I think Ryan touched to a good point there, and this is a little bit off topic now, but like, a friend of mine, Virgil, he's the CEO and founder of a company called Figures in the EU. They're like a PAVE, a Ravio, like a kind of compensation benchmarking framework. Incredible team. And they did this huge piece of research about the C-suite. And part of that is they were looking into gender splits within C-suite roles. 85% of CPOs, chief people, are women. The next one is CMO, and I think it's about 30%. And then it just immediately plummets to like 10%, 12% for CFOs and COOs, and then very, very, very small for CEOs. And then the other next layer, actually, the number of CPOs was actually much lower per company, per capita, than the other C-suite. And usually what these women were actually in were VP roles. So we have a VP HR, a C-suite of men. So I don't want to turn everything into gender dynamics, but I do want to say, if you are in a position where you are one of a certain gender or a certain ethnicity or anything on a board of people trying to push through decisions, and you're also trying to push through large scale change, and you're in a role that's been consistently seen as like a cost center that is much more ephemeral and touchy feely and about like making people feel good, not about business outcomes, I completely understand why you would struggle to say, I want to start shipping things more agile. I want to start being more aggressive in having revenue driving metrics. Like that's a much harder sell in the context, right?
Yeah, I think it's also you like kind of an activity-based function in some ways, right? Like there is like a roadmap of things that is pretty normal for a HR leader to do, right? Like, so like performance reviews, right? They're going to happen at a certain time. Compensation reviews. There's just like things. There's a lot of stuff that has to happen, and the business expects it to happen. And I think it can be really easy in any C-suite role to get caught up in like the doing. And you pointed this out, I think, Daniel, but like if the CPO needs to be involved in the minutia of the work at the company because it's sensitive, it can be hard for them to get like some space to actually think more long term, right? Whereas no one's telling me when to run a marketing campaign, right? Like there isn't really a set calendar for that. I set that calendar, but there is
except for Super Bowl. Except for
the Super Bowl, yeah, exactly. If you have enough money, there is a set time for that. And so I think that maybe is part of it that also makes it a little bit hard, right? I think a lot of CEOs just view that it's like, it's a function that's like, you got to get stuff done. And that then I think takes away from the ability to think, to stop and think. And when I'm really busy, I don't spend as much time looking at the metrics that matter to me. I'm busy doing stuff. And that's me when I'm not at my best. When I'm at my best, I'm spending some time every week, like digging into metrics that I don't need to dig into, but that I might find something interesting that I can share with my team.
I agree with what both of you said. And I also think if we were to ask chief people officers or just people leaders, would you do this? Would is determining a calc to LTV ratio for employees part of your job description? They'd be like, no, that's not like, I do these other things, these other people things like recruit and total rewards and all the traditional things, but like, no, that's outside of the scope. So I think that is part of it also. And if I, as an HR person, I don't know where I would start as a CEO and entrepreneur. I know exactly how I would begin to attempt to calculate a CAC to LTV ratio for employees. And so I think that it's complicated. There's a lot of reasons at play into.
But I would say Daniel, before you get to that, like that's such an advanced metric, right? And like that's something that like Jessie, very advanced at what she does, will be looking at, right?
Yeah.
I would say that even like to like simplify it, even like I would just start like the crawl, walk, run sort of a thing. And like from a crawl perspective, it's like, what are the things that we as a company are giving to our employees, right? So like there might be leadership training, there might be coaching, there might be mentoring, there might be healthcare, there might be a wellness benefit. Like what is being used? I would just start firstly at like usage, right? Because I think that's also part of it is like HR teams and people teams kind of get, I hear this so often, like we need to check the box of insert the thing. There's an expectation that a box needs to be checked. Like we need to check the box of mental health at our company. And like, what is the quickest way for us to do that? And I think when you go in with that mindset, unfortunately, you're not going to choose the best solution. You're not going to spend time with users, employees, etc. And then the usage isn't going to be high. And it's this vicious cycle, right? So the usage is low. There's frustration of, oh my God, like employees are telling us they want something here. We just gave it to them. No one is using it. Why not? And so that then comes into like the internal comms piece of like the importance of HR really internally marketing what they're doing and getting feedback on their campaigns per se and looking at usage. And it's so interconnected. And I think that's where like HR leaders can do a good job at like aligning with marketing actually. Like me and my chief people officer are like joined at the hip. And because if we're marketing something internally to our employees, it's gonna get outside as well. It's gonna make its way to Glassdoor. It's going to make its way outside of the walls of Gympass. And so us being connected is really important. And she teaches me things and I teach her things. And I think the more HR can like integrate with other functions in the business and like partner and leverage their skills and vice versa, I think the better.
Love it.
All right. So we end every episode the exact same way, and that's with our rapid fire questions. The first two questions are for you, Ryan, and then the last question is going to be for you, Jessica. So question one, how do you define a modern people leader? What are the traits and characteristics?
That's a good one. I mean, so I think two key traits for modern people leaders that we focus on at Gympass specifically are around flexibility and empowerment. And I think this is true. I think of this a lot about marketers even as well, and like this being really, really key. But so like Gympass, we're a flexible first company. We empower our employees to choose how they want to work, and we expect our leaders to be able to be flexible and to set things up for their teams that allow their teams to be at their best. And I don't think flexibility works well without empowerment, right? I think the empowerment piece really is what unlocks flexibility. And so we have a series of principles and tools that we give all of our leaders at us when they start. It's actually called like Empower. And we have like, funny actually, we have Empower 2.0. We used to have Empower 1.0. And we kind of think of this leadership tool set that we have at Gympass as a product, really. Actually, there's like a 2.1 coming out soon based on feedback. There'll be a 2.2. And so like for us, that is not only, I think, important to like the leaders at the company, but it's based off of our user research, and our employees are saying, hey, they didn't feel they were empowered enough. And so we built this tool set. We're listening to them. It's evolving. And it's been like such a game changer. And because obviously we're a well-being company, we care about well-being. We also realize that just giving well-being benefits doesn't make someone well, right? Like the way the company operates too, and the way your leaders operate is so important as well. And so for us, like empowering our teams is actually a really big part of what makes them so well at Gympass, because they have this empowerment to choose how they work, when they work, and they have the tools to do so. And so I think you could throw all the benefits at your employees. And if you have a toxic work culture where folks aren't empowered and everything's not ethical, like they're not going to reach their full potential. So sorry, that was a really long answer, but like flexibility and empowerment, just like really big thing and for me specifically when I'm hiring leaders.
I personally love the long-winded answers, so that was great. All right. If you could go back in time and talk to a 22-year-old Ryan, what career advice would you give yourself and why?
I'll keep this one faster. So 22-year-old Ryan's super results oriented. Like, and I think Jesse's probably really similar to me here. Like I was just like, go. How can I have as much impact as possible? Like revenue. And it wasn't until I think I was in my mid-20s that I realized like there's another R word in addition to results that's really important, and that's relationship. And I think any modern people leader really needs to be able to balance result and relationship. And, you know, if you focus on results and not relationships, you're going to burn all these bridges that then stops you from driving results in the long term. So for me, I over-index on results, under-index on relationships. And I think if I went back in time, I would coach little 22-year-old Ryan around like how to leverage people and relationship to drive even bigger results versus it all needing to be on you.
It's funny. We had Adam Ward, who has a talent firm, on the show a couple weeks ago, and his response was the exact opposite of yours. He started as a very relationship-oriented person, and he's had to over-index to be more results-oriented.
Interesting. I don't know if you've read like Kim Scott's book Radical Candor, but like I've definitely felt. So I feel like if you're overly relational, sometimes you can fall into that like ruinous empathy quadrant in her like quadrant where it's
that's
like
what he was describing.
Yeah. I was kind of in more of like the arsehole quadrant, like both probably not great to be, but at least
I can't imagine that, right?
I relate to that because I was also 22-year-old Steven was a bull in a china shop, and I just was like just trying to do the most. So
reformed arseholes. That's what you should call this podcast.
All right. So this last question is for you, Jessica. Is there anything that you believe to be true about the world of work, but don't yet have the data to support?
So I thought about one of the things I was going to say when I was in the prep for this was going to be talking about there is a way to get like a really great metric around like employee lifetime value, like how to actually really figure out the value that people are putting back into a business. But we've talked about that enough, so I don't think it's that. One of the things I do think, which is like, I don't know if we talked about this last time, but there's this kind of theory I have at the moment where I think the future of the world of work is going to be much more driven by ownership of companies. Like if you've got the rise in AI kind of removing a lot of administrative expectations, you've got a really changing employment and recruitment landscape with a lot of really senior people leaving big tech and going into startups, like in these more kind of strategic roles. I think we're going to start seeing people really start demanding like profit sharing and also especially now there's this big drive towards sustainability and profitability. So I think one of the things I'm starting to look into a little bit more is like the expectations people are going to start having, I think, around profit sharing, ownership of businesses, being more involved in board level decisions and understanding what's happening at the board level as like equity owners. Because I do really think that we're going to start seeing a shift in the workforce to be much more strategic overall. So that's my current conspiracy theory.
Love it. Love so much. We'll have to save this for our next group episode and dig into that conspiracy theory because sure. I love it. We're now at that point that we need to end the conversation, which is a total bummer because it's just been so fun. I do have one question, Ryan, for you that is a bit of a curveball, just really quick.
I love a curveball.
We normally ask this in every episode, but we left it off our outline for this one. But I've just been so impressed with what you shared with us today and clearly the persona of a modern people leader. And so I'm just curious if there's one modern people leader that you know, or just someone in our space that you're just like, wow, you see their LinkedIn and feel like they really need to be heard. Who should we have on the modern people leader? Like, who is that one or two people?
Yeah, there's like two, and you already have one of them.
Okay.
So I'll start with so the first I would say, I mean, and you've had Jess as well. I mean, so Livia, who is our Chief People Officer at Gympass, is just like a wildly fascinating human. She was our CFO. She held multiple C-suite roles at Gympass. Highly accomplished, highly intelligent, highly empathetic. Just like she's like a trifecta on all fronts. She's really remarkable. The other person who always comes to mind here, and again, isn't traditionally trained, is Katie Burke at HubSpot. And I know Katie well and haven't spoken to her in a long time, actually, but I think she is just like such a sharp human, just like a great human, in addition to just being a great people leader. But again, like very, very just dynamic in how he thinks about like the people team and the function. I mean, when I joined HubSpot, she was like I think a senior director of communications and PR.
Oh, wow. That's right. She started in marketing also.
Yeah.
She started in marketing and moved her way to being the Chief People Officer. There were several steps to getting there. I think she went into culture next and then moved up into that. But again, I think with so many roles in the C-suite, it's less about sometimes traditional training. Maybe this isn't true for like chief legal officer, chief financial officer. But I think she's really dynamic. So I'd say Livia, Martin at Gympass, and then Katie Burke at HubSpot. It's just
love it. Well, thank you. And we've been, fortunate to have Katie on before. We would love to have her back. And Olivia sounds amazing. So we'll definitely reach out. And that brings us to our final tradition. And that's wrapping things up with a one word or phrase close. We each share a word or a few words about this conversation that we just want to wrap things up with. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. Okay. Employee lifetime value.
Ooh.
I had to steal that.
That's 3 words though, Daniel.
Yeah, that's a lot of words.
You stole a word off Stephen and off me.
Yeah. Who's gonna?
I will say the word holistic has come up a lot. This is like, I think everyone's mentioned it, like the idea of like having this kind of like broad view. That's something that I think has been really interesting about this episode, actually being able to hear from marketing and then talk about ops and talk about people. And I love when other C-suite people talk about each other's functions. I think it's so interesting to hear what you have to say about what other people are doing. So yeah, holistic.
I'm going to go with blessed because this conversation is so much fun, so awesome. So lucky that Daniel and I get to have these conversations, and literally it was organic. I think Jess, you mentioned like, hey, would you be interested in doing this? I want to have my friend Ryan on, and it's like I just really feeling blessed. So
I'm gonna piggyback on that, Daniel. I was gonna say grateful. I'm not really religious. I'm gonna stay away from the blessed word. Just
understand.
I'm weird
I
like
understand.
that.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, really grateful to spend time with you all. Like fun to chat with folks that think about things, I think maybe in a more dynamic way than like pausing from the work, the busy work, and thinking more about the important long-term work. So yeah, grateful for this.
I think your other word was, well, Ryan, is late, right? You're about 10 minutes late for your one time with the
He's okay. My
Busted.
CEO is the best. My CEO is the bomb. Like it's the most dynamic person I'd ever worked for, actually. So he's great.
If
He'll
he's listening, he'll know why. You'll be like, this is the podcast I was recording when I was late for our one-to-one. And he'll be like, oh, okay.
And now I feel bad. Now you need to get to your meetings. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute blast. And we should definitely do this again.
We should. Bye, guys.
No worries.
Thanks, Stephen.
Thanks,
Daniel.
team. Have a lovely rest of
Jeff.
your Friday.
Love you guys.
You too.
Wow.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Modern People Leader. We really, really appreciate it. And if you enjoyed the show, please leave us a 5-star rating. It would mean the world to us. And connect with us on LinkedIn. We wanna know what you think about the show. And yeah, you can find links to both of our profiles in the show notes. So thanks again for listening, and see you on the next episode.